Hello everybody, today is the 20th of October and this is the Flux Dev Meeting. So let's crack on going through the whole GA focuses stuff, but before I go there, if you guys have anything to add to the agenda, please do so on this link I'm sharing right there. I will share my screen and get this show on the road. There you go. Yeah, let me close this one. Cool, brilliant. So let's first go through the things that we've done since the last dev meeting. There's a few things on the Git refactoring, so kind of brief them lightly now and then we cover them later. So one of them was the libgit2. I think we talked about this before, but basically we created a new image with libgit2, which has libgit2 1.5. We tested that quite a lot, and we merged, a version of that working on the Git refactoring branches. Since then, we removed that for a reason that I will come back to soon. But yeah, we tested and this is working absolutely fine. So libgit2 with version 1.5 is working as intended, which is quite good. I will not cover this memory leak issue because we reverted that change. There are a few things around like memory optimization that we changed recently. I will cover them. So first one is around the untar. It's a small change here, really, but just to make sure that we consume as little memory as possible as we're processing, untar files. And on top of that, the same for the fetch, and this mostly affects the customized controller. The interesting thing to see here is, like the byte usage per operation reduced to a 10th, which is absolutely brilliant. But one thing we can't forget is one of the most problematic areas we have in terms of performance and especially memory consumption is YAML processing. And we use the same YAML processing libraries then upstream, and that is the source of the problem. We're not going to go through that now, but the key thing that I'm saying is this helps, but it still is not our biggest bottleneck. So if you still see OOMs, that's expected to some extent. Cool. So small things, we disabled the macOS build test for source controller. This is just because that was giving some more noise that we really don't need right now. I will open this one here. I'm not sure if this should be closed.
Why not?
So did we finish all the changes for case status on customize? I think Sunny might be able to. Okay. Let me. Okay, it's just that there was no. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, my mistake. Okay, that's fine. So that's done. Do you want to comment anything about that, by the way, Sunny?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Stefan implemented it. I didn't.
Yeah, sorry.
You mean it's Stefan?
Yeah, I'm absolutely lost today, guys. Let's reset that. Yeah, so I remember that the changes we actually discussed 2 or 3 meetings ago. He mentioned a few things to do on the customize, but that was about the API. around the case status, there's nothing left to be done.
There are 8 pull requests which close that thing. We did a bunch of things in customized controller. We've refactored out all the things that could be put in package. We moved other things like decryptor and other stuff to internal. We've implemented case status conditions. We've implemented intermediary patches for the reconciler run, so people will see in real time in the reconciling case status condition what the controller is about to do. And it's all in those pull requests. There are many changes in there.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And the documentation for that, we also updated, right?
That's a different issue.
Part of it is done. Stefan took out a couple of the information that was a duplicate from some of the website pages, but it hasn't been restructured yet as how the source controller spec is basically written. That's the part that's left.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to rewrite all those docs.
I can help you with that. I think it has. I kind of did it for the source controller, and you basically just have to go through a certain series of steps to summarize all the information.
All right. So I'm moving these update API spec docs based on source controller standard for the customized controller to in progress. And then once we're done with that, we can close that. But yeah, is that all right? Is there anyone looking to that, by the way? I'm taking that as a no, but yeah. All right, let's go through more items there. So I don't want to cover Go Git yet. I'll cover all that in one go. Let's talk about. Yeah, do you want to mention? Do you want to talk about this? Allow deleting suspended objects, Sunny.
Yeah, so we had a kind of a bug in source control after the rewriting, which made it such that when you delete something, the suspend check was right at the top, because of which finalizers were not getting removed. So now we move the check below. Now finalizers get removed and your object gets deleted. Suspended object gets deleted. So that works now. There we have some tests for each of the 6 reconcilers, which are kinds, source kinds, to ensure that all of them work when you delete suspended objects, they get deleted.
Brilliant, that's awesome, thank you. All right. Yeah, we can briefly talk about, well, let me cover the ones about Go Git and all that kind of stuff in one go. So keep jumping them until we get there. So let's go refactor adopt Flux runtime conditions. Well, this is pretty much the point before, which is now done for customized controller. Let's see these one. Match against API types. Oh yeah, well, this is part of Git refactoring, nothing major. And let me quickly cover the points here. So this is part of, you know, an item on the agenda. So what I will do is I'll just cover now, given that the items are here as well. The item on the agenda is Git refactoring, Go Git findings. So we've been playing a lot with libgit2, and after a lot of investigation, you know, we really couldn't get to the bottom of panics, which made us kind of take a bit of a 360 or 180 actually, and start thinking about, you know, what could we do on GoGit. After some, you know, tests and all, I worked on this PR, which pretty much removes the blocker of using multi-act and multi-act detailed capabilities, because basically those capabilities are not implemented on GoGit. The thing is, for the Flux needs, we don't need them fully implemented, because what they actually do is, you know, optimize the handshake between the client and the server on follow-up, you know, pulls. Like, so you already have a clone, and then after a bit you go and try to get, you know, fetch the latest from the server. So instead of, you know, trying to get everything, you query the state of the server, you provide information from the client, and you have a reduced bandwidth on that exchange. Given that everything that we do, we always do a full clone or a shallow clone, we don't need that at all. We pretty much tell the server, look, we have nothing, give us everything. So those two capabilities are pretty much, you know, pointless on that perspective. So as part of this test, I checked that with a bunch of providers. So I checked that on HTTPS and SSH with different key exchange algorithms, just to make sure that everything was working as it is now, especially with image automation controller. Everything works as I expected. Well, not as I expected, but as expected, which is great. The memory consumption is slightly higher, but I found quite a bit of optimizations that can be done there, but I'm going to get into that later. First thing is make sure that everything is working. So this is working, great. After this was done and committed, we started playing with other things as well. So for example, I think Stefan mentioned, well, asked for this to be tested on the Flux CLI. So on the Flux CLI, same thing. I tested this against Azure DevOps, tested this against well, all the providers that I mentioned before, and again, it worked as intended, which is brilliant. What does this whole thing mean? Like, why is this important, right? So the great thing about this is GoGit supports shallow clones, which means we can, you know, do a lot lighter downloads every time that we're cloning something, you know, a repository. Another thing that is quite important is the dependencies we have to use GoGit. They're, you know, just Go dependencies. We don't need to maintain a lot of things that we need in order to get libgit2 to work, which is brilliant. One thing that is also very positive on using GoGit is that we don't need to use cgo, which is what we need, right, for libgit2. So to use libgit2, we use the Go bindings from the Git2Go project, and everything there happens via cgo, and that is the main source of the panics we're having. There's a lot of things, especially when there's pressures on garbage collector, that would delete objects that are needed for libgit2 to work, and because they are no longer in memory, then, you know, the whole thing collapses and you know, the controller dies. And at scale, basically you can't really have that at scale. Like, from all the things I've been looking at so far, it points that, you know, libgit2 is a bit off a dead end from a scalability perspective. So all this is really positive, being able to use GoGit. Another thing that I actually tested recently, which was quite positive, is we can do shallow clones and pushes from it as well. So I tested that on Azure DevOps. I tested that as well in GitHub. The only issue I had is when you have absolute links, which I actually created a PR just now about that as well. And I'll explain what this does, right? So the problem here is GoGit has a file system kind of representation. And when it's using the disk representation of the file system, it has a char root, which is not an actual kernel level char root, but is a make pretend one. And for that to work, what it does is it changes its perception of the file system. So if you have a absolute link, like I have quite a few on mine repositories, especially to test some security checks and all. What it does is it rewrites those absolute links with the char root base path on the beginning, which means your work tree is dirty, and then you can't pretty much do the pushes. So I kind of changed that to pretty much return a better error, or like a more clearer error message, so we can actually see those things, and folks that do have absolute symlinks on their repositories would at least know what the problem is. Realistically, I don't think we can fix this upstream, and the reason for that is the whole abstraction they have. They even have tests to accommodate for this specific scenario to ensure that it gets rewritten. So probably the way around this would be to create our own representation of the file system. But again, that's something we can kind of talk about later if we want to support people having absolute links on their repositories. Apart from this scenario, everything worked fine. Yeah, sorry.
There is also another issue with GoGit. It changes permissions of all executable files to non-executable. So if you run Flux Bootstrap on an existing repo, it will destroy all your scripts and everything. There is an issue since, I don't know, last year or whatever on this.
Oh, fine. So to be honest, if that is the case, then what we can do, and it's actually quite an easy one, is just remove those restrictions from the FS and have our own implementation of the FS, and that would just work. Because my tests locally were pretty much like that. I didn't want to kind of do another implementation of that kind of file system representation, but if that would unblock all that, then it seems worth it. But yeah, so on that point, yeah, sorry, go for it.
Why do we change the permissions of files when we do a clone? Is it?
It's not us, it's because of the file system representation, right? So when GoGit is processing the pack file, it has to send, well, if a storage is defined, it will go there and say to the storage, create this file. The representation of that storage is the GoBilly file system. And every single time you create a file, it will go through all the business rules of that file system. So if it's a symlink, what it will do is consistently check. If it's an absolute link, we'll do the change of the path, as I mentioned before, and anything else, like for example the example that you mentioned, executable files or other modifier changes. We could try to use the memory file system because they don't do any kind of restrictions to that. The problem with that is that we would be willing to always have a higher memory usage, which I don't think is a good trade-off. So I think we'd better just implement our own file system, which would be the same, but without those changes.
Yeah, we can't keep in memory tens of gigabytes of repo data, right?
Well, that's the thing. GoGit does that already, which is pretty poor, and that's one of the things that I'm kind of working through, because it's really, really poor the way they allocate memory. And for example, when you're using file system, you have everything in memory because you need the in-memory objects, and on top of that, you reallocate the same object again to do on disk. So pretty much memory consumption and allocations is almost double when we're using the on-disk file system. But again, there are some optimizations that are already found for that.
Wait. So we had some reports, I don't know, months ago with people having 1 gigabyte files in their repo, and source controller didn't run out of memory.
Yeah. So quick thing.
Oh, they were using libgit2. So libgit2 does not keep all things in memory, right? Only GoGit.
So libgit2 would be more efficient to process things that are handled inside of it. And overall, it does come across like a bit more efficient in terms of, you know, processing large files, large repositories. The problem with GoGit is that everything that it processes into the memory, it will allocate those bytes twice, which puts further pressure on the garbage collector, right? Which will eventually cause higher spikes and also, you know, kind of delayed clones given the pressure from garbage collector. But again, I found quite a few optimizations already on that, but I will go back to it once everything's working as intended, which should be soon, really.
Great.
Cool. All right, so I'll look into the file system point, because that would be quite a easy win. But overall, yeah, even testing with image automation controller, there are some funny things on the push branch, which I'm trying to kind of get to the bottom of. It's working fine on like Azure DevOps, but I found some inconsistencies on GitHub. So I pretty much just trying to get to the bottom of that. But I think that case specifically is because I have a long running push branch, which is not aligned with my main branch anymore. And I don't think we offer users the option to do a force push. So again, I'll be looking into that, but I don't think that would be a massive deal breaker. And yeah, overall, it does look like good news. Does anybody have like any questions around the GoGit or anything that is not clear? So actually, just one thing to mention. So one of these changes that Sanskar did recently about image automation controller is pretty much to surface the Git implementation from the sources to image automation controller. So before we were always forcing libgit2, and with this change, which is only on the Git refactoring branch, you know, folks can actually define what implementation they are using for image automation controller. This is available already on the RC version we released yesterday. I shared that on the Flux contributors yesterday. So if anyone wants to kind of play around with that, this is the image to look. And there's the same thing for source controller.
No, we basically use what's set in source controller. You don't have to set it again in image automation, right?
Exactly, yeah. So whatever is on your source, you use the exact same implementation across both controllers.
Yeah, we had that 2 years ago. Didn't work.
Oh.
Hopefully this time will.
Well, let's see what's going to happen. So far, it's working fine, yeah. But again, like, and that's why it's so important for other people to test, because then we make sure that if there's any issues, anything to be ironed out, we can do that sooner rather than later. One thing that I also wanted to cover, a while ago upstream, actually, I'm not sure if it's a while ago, but upstream on GoGit, they changed their API to auto-populate the non-host algorithms. So one issue that we have is doing the handshake with an SSH server. If you provide a known key, a non-host, a non-host using an algorithm that is not the first one of the handshake, you might have, a failure on the clone, right? So one thing that they implemented was, based on your non-host, automatically figure out what is the algorithms that you should apply and use that instead, which is great. That doesn't work for us yet because their implementation is pretty much file-based and ours is not. But this is something that we'll get back to soon. Well, pretty much as soon as we have everything working as it should, because it makes a lot more sense to provide this automatically based on the non-host instead of our current approach, which is giving the users a flag that then they kind of need to make sure it's aligned and not necessarily will work across multiple repositories. Because again, like the magic of using this based on the non-host is that the non-host we set per Git repository, and at the moment the flagging which you set that configuration is at a controller level, which could bring some challenges. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and that is it. Any other questions about GoGit before we go to the next topic? All right, so we'll stop sharing. The next topic I can see is with Stacy. Do you wanna cover it, please?
Yeah, for sure. So I just wanted to say that Flux at KubeCon will have a lot of talks for GitOpsCon and for KubeCon. And then a lot of folks will be working the booth at the project pavilion within KubeCon itself. So the link that I provided in the documentation there actually links to kind of like a mini site of everything that we have going on that's Flux related, all talks that are Flux related that are happening at GitOpsCon and KubeCon. And then we're having our project meeting. That's an official KubeCon project meeting in person on Monday, the 24th. So we've been tweeting about it and things like that. But I just wanted to kind of put it out there and let everyone know that that we got all kinds of great stuff happening at KubeCon North America. So please check out the schedule on that link. I think it's just bit.ly/flux-KubeCon-2022. So yeah,
We'll also have representation at Prometheus Day. I think we left that off a few of these lists. Sunskar and I will be presenting Flagger and Kida.
I think it's on the schedule to the link that I provided. But yeah, that's true. Good highlight. That's it for me.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Anything else? Any other business that anyone wants to raise, or any other items to add into the agenda? Now is the time.
Yeah, so I want to bring up the next Flux release, which should happen today, but it's not going to happen today, probably weekend. I have created umbrella issue for this here. And I've listed under the to-dos the blockers that we currently have. So we need to get cosine merged into source controller. And I've seen that Sunny found some issues with resetting the verify condition. So yeah, I'm not sure if we will be able to do this at all.
I can provide some more details. So we don't have a way to decide that we will not verify every single time. So right now the code is such that it will verify in every reconciliation. One way to do that would be build the chart and store the revision somewhere, pass that revision in the next chart builder, and then you can compare the chart revisions and decide not to verify because that was verified already. If we are fine with this implementation, we can release it. But
So
if you want to not, then we can delay.
okay, so it doesn't skip the verification even if the digest is the same because the digest information is nowhere stored in status, right? Yeah, would it work to put it in revision like we do for OCI repository?
It should. I discussed with Sule and he was saying this would work. But I discussed some other implementation details as well. So the chart builder has a function where it fetches the version of the chart. In case of OCI, it gets tags, and that version type has tag and digest as well, which we don't get it right now. We get empty value for that. He said we can use the Google containers project to fetch the revision as well and compare that revision with the previous build revision and can skip their version. But again, these changes may take some time and maybe we can just do a release with verify always and later make it optional.
Yeah, is Sule here?
Sule said he wouldn't be able to make it today.
Yeah, if
He said he can. He said he can demo this in KubeCon as a pre-release. Not pre-release, as a, what did he say? Something that's coming up. It's not released yet.
so there is no issue if you verify the chart every time if the verification is based on a static key because it's in a secret, the secret is already cached. It's nothing.
But this has the same argument we had with OCI, right? And there
No,
you said,
wait,
huh?
let me finish. So when you use a static key, there is not a big issue if people set Helm chart to 1 minute, right? Because they want to have automatically updates. So if every minute we do we pull the secret, that's not an issue. The main problem is when you do keyless signing. When you do keyless signing, cosine makes around 50 API calls to all sorts of things, to Google buckets to get the root CA, to Recur to get timestamps, logs, signatures. It goes on the container registry to download its own signature thing and so on. So I guess if you have, let's say, 1,000 Helm charts, all signed keyless, and they are reconciled every minute, you will your cluster will be probably banned by your container registry, so kubelet will not be able to pull anything, and your whole cluster will go down. So that's the main issue here. But I don't expect anyone to have signed charts yet. This is more about, you know, what we would like to see in the future. As far as I'm aware, there is no organization or big, I don't know, provider like Bitnami that uses even OCI. Everybody's still on HTTPS repos. So if besides if the verification is done every time, I don't see an issue merging it now and doing after KubeCon the optimization where we skip it based on digest. Besides that, is everything else okay?
I didn't try it. I just went through it thinking about it. It looked fine to me.
Yeah, I did tested it, but yeah, I didn't notice. I should use TCP dump on the controller to see what's happening, because I didn't notice that it does every time a verification.
Initially, it was not. With the changes you pushed today,
Oh,
after yesterday's discussion, now it's doing it. Previously, it was using the old verified source false from the status to decide should it retry or not. And then I told this, it's a bipolar condition, you should remove it. So when you do that, you don't have anything to refer.
oh, okay. Okay, so I'll test it tonight again. Thanks for the heads up.
So maybe you can test and maybe tomorrow you can merge it into the release.
Yeah, and do the release Sunday, Saturday. There are a lot of things, right? After source controller, we need to update Helm controller to know about the verification and everything. Pull the source controller API everywhere. So yeah, yeah, we'll merge it tomorrow morning, and by tomorrow night it could be done. I don't know, I'll try.
Brilliant. Anything else to talk about today then?
I think that's it.
Okie dokie. So, well, thank you very much, everyone, and you guys have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.